The true secret in being a hero lies in knowing the order of things. The swineherd cannot already be wed to the princess when he embarks on his adventures, nor can the boy knock on the witch's door when she's already away on vacation. The wicked uncle cannot be found out and foiled before he does something wicked. Things must happen when it is time for them to happen. Quests may not simply be abandoned. Prophecies may not be left to rot like unpicked fruit. Unicorns may go unrescued for a very long time, but not forever. The happy ending cannot come in the middle of the story.
My mother's a witch. That's a bit of an odd place to start, I know, but it's a punchy opening, isn't it? It's also true, but by witch I don't mean Wiccan, I don't mean pagan, and I don't mean New Age earth goddess. It's not about spells or burning incense or communing with spirits. She just has gifts and a measure of power that most of us don't. It runs in the family, or rather it runs in a very specific segment of the family. My mother is the first daughter of the first daughter of the first daughter, and so on back 4 or 5 generations, possibly more. That is my family's line of witches. These women have all known this about themselves. The family has known. It's never been a point of shame. My grandmother called herself a kitchen witch. And if you ever had the chance to have her cooking, you would have been hard-pressed to disagree. Now, because I was born male, this line ends with my mother. I don't have the gifts that she has or my grandmother had. I bring all this up for context because one night at dinner, about 1.5 years ago, my mother said something that clicked some things into place in my head. She said, I think that cosmically speaking, you were meant to be a girl. The wording here is key because it's not the same as the usual born into the wrong body narrative that I think most people are used to hearing about trans or gender variant people. Now, I'm not negating that as being true for many trans people, possibly even the majority of them, but it's a narrative that's never rang true for me. And it's that slight difference in what my mother said that really spoke to me. This notion that if the universe had its way, I'd have been another first daughter of a first daughter. Now, my mother has been telling me for my entire life that she had wanted to have a son. She actually focused her power on having one. And given how my life has gone and how I've changed over the years, I now tend to think that between my mother's desire and push for a son and the universe's original intent for a daughter, the difference was kind of split. Because I wasn't born what you see right now. This isn't me presenting as what I've always been deep down, nor is this really a choice or something that I could just stop doing or being. What you see is what I've evolved into, what I've changed into, and is no more or less real than what I was before or what I'll be afterwards. I was raised as a boy, and at the time I was perfectly happy to be a boy. But as I've aged, my feminine side has become more and more pronounced. For a time, I kept my masculine and feminine lives separated from each other, as separate as I could make them without ever suppressing either one. Eventually, the dividing wall between masculine and feminine crumbled, and I flow pretty freely over the dividing line that used to be there, and that's what you see now. I don't claim to be a woman, not even a trans woman. But I'm certainly no longer the boy my mother willed into being. And I say that with no resentment or regret towards the masculine years of my youth, because I'll be honest, I actually kind of really love the idea of my mother looking the cosmic intentions of the universe in the eye and going, "Oh, no, you don't." The name my mother gave me is Nathaniel, and if you follow me on Council of Geeks, you might know me by that name. If you know me from this channel or from shows that I perform at, or if you've read my book, then you might know me as Vera. I'll happily answer to either one for the record. When I was asked to speak at my local Unitarian Universalist congregation, I thought at first that I would talk about tolerance, about acceptance, which isn't the same thing, and about my experience with those things in this country, the state, the town I live in, but that's something more for a lecture or a TED Talk, and if you really need someone to explain to you why respecting other people, even if you don't understand them, is a good thing, then, well, you probably aren't going to listen to somebody who looks like me. Besides, I can't really tell you what the LGBTQ plus experience is in any sweeping, grand sense. I can only tell you about me and about my journey. I was 11 years old the first time I put on a dress outside of the context of playing dress up with female friends. I was 20, the first time I came out to anyone, though it was kind of forced by circumstance because when the future mother of my daughter found nylon stockings among my things, I had to explain to her that they were mine and not another woman's. 21 was when I first wore a dress in public to a midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, wearing a borrowed dress and high heel boots that were too small for my feet. At 23, I started performing in drag shows. By 26, I'd shifted to burlesque. By the time I turned 30, I was open with most of my friends and family. When I was 32, I started to post videos on the internet about myself and my experiences and thoughts while presenting as female. Initially, these were performance numbers, and later they would take the form of advice videos for cross-dressers, which was how I identified for a long time. At 34, I adopted the term genderfluid, its kind of inherent malleability appealing to my sense of self, which just has a tendency to not stay put. A year later, I started talking to a physician about my fluctuating sense of gender and was prescribed a hormone regimen. I came out publicly through social media at 36, and for the record, I'll be 38 next year. And about the only thing I can say with much confidence is that I'm probably not done changing. But I can't even say that for certain. And if I do continue to change, I can't be sure in what ways. The phrase "the only constant is change" is something we've all heard, and probably more than we need to. For my purposes, I actually prefer a slight variant. The only certain thing is uncertainty. Because eventually, things may actually stop changing. But even if they do, you will never be certain that they won't start changing again. Even in stability, there is uncertainty. I'm very comfortable with uncertainty about whatever I can't exert direct influence over, which is, of course, most things. And that includes certain aspects of myself, such as what gender I feel like. Even accounting for my fluctuations at this point, I like to think I have a fairly decent handle on who I am right now, but I gave up a long time ago trying to predict who I might be later on. It's why I've been telling you about my experiences, my thoughts, and only making passing reference to my labels and haven't even talked about my pronouns. Because things like that feel like locking myself down and trying to be definitive about something that's already changed repeatedly. I have my notions about what might be next for me, but that's a general sense. It's not really a plan. Because the instant I even entertain the thought, this is definitely where I'm heading, I tense up. Not physically, not even mentally, but philosophically, spiritually, I tense up. And I relax by just being whoever I am on this day and embracing it, regardless of who or what I might be tomorrow. The quote that opened this was from the novel The Last Unicorn, a book which I encourage everyone to read, even if you've seen the movie, which is very good. And the reason I pulled that quote is because it speaks so beautifully to something I frequently find myself trying to explain to people. We don't get to just plant a flag in our emotional, psychological, or spiritual development and declare, there, now I'm done. You're still in the middle of your story. No matter what your age or life situation is, it's still the middle. You don't get to be done. Much as we would all like to feel that we've got this sorted out and now we can finally get to just relax. I feel a lot of the confusion and resentment around people like me is that our presence kind of forces the issue for a lot of people. For lack of a less violent term, it slaps them in the face with the fact that there are still things left for them to learn. Because if you've gone your entire life operating on the foundation of boys are boys, girls are girls, that's that. Somebody like me is more than just confusing. I'm actually a threat to your foundational premise. I am a reminder that not only are you not done learning and evolving, but you might well have to unlearn stuff that you've been taking for granted this whole time. And rather understandably, most people don't want to have to do that. It's not only work, it's work you weren't ever planning on having to do. It's a sociological act of God, and you can't really prepare for the shifts in understanding that the simple existence of somebody like me indicates and demands. And some people will fight very hard in order to not have to put in the work. It is so important to some people that I cannot be what I say I am. Gender fluid, genderqueer, non-binary, no. These are not options to be entertained. These people need me to be wrong. They need me to be confused or lying or mentally ill or trying to be trendy, which is an accusation that will never stop being bizarre to me. For people like that, taking me at my word is not an option. They need to have a reason to be able to dismiss me. Because if they can't dismiss me, that means they have to deal with what my existence means about their worldview. And they can't handle the uncertainty. Because that's the funny thing about concepts like non-binary or gender fluid. They're actually more disruptive to the status quo than trans men or trans women. A person born a man deciding to transition and live life as a woman, or vice versa, that still fits the fundamental model that most people have of gender. And that model is a light switch. It has two settings. Fine, some people flip from one to the other, but it's still just the two. It's this or it's this. Pick one. But gender isn't a light switch. It's a dimmer switch. With a million variations and adjustments between the two far ends. And to run with the metaphor, that makes me the person who is constantly twiddling with the knob. I am very comfortable with uncertainty about pretty fundamental things about myself, about the world, about God. And if I wasn't comfortable with that uncertainty, I don't think I could function. And maybe that's the compromise that happened between my mother's power and the universe's plans. And maybe because of that compromise, I'm comfortable with not knowing. I don't know what tomorrow will bring with something as basic as my own sense of self. But that doesn't have to inhibit how I live today. And continuing to change out into the future doesn't make the person that I was in the past or the person that I am right now so much unbaked dough. My days are not simply some commute to a destination because I don't know where I'm going, and where I am now is valid, whether I stay here or not. Today is not a stepping stone to tomorrow where some nebulous meaning awaits me. Today has meaning. Today is whole. Today is complete. I am complete, as I have been at every point of this journey. I can tell you who I am today, and if tomorrow I've changed, that does not make today a lie. I'm not done changing. I'm not done learning. I will never be done. And if the journey never ends, then the destination doesn't matter. And what we do on the road makes all the difference. One foot in front of the other, be it in steel-toed boots or 5-inch heels. Every step is valid. Every stop is beautiful. Every companion is welcome. I never know for sure what's going to happen. And that, to me, is magic. This is my truth. And I thank you for letting me share it.